Hello, welcome to another video, and this one is about the Apple Watch Sport. The video is divided into three parts. Part number one, I will be talking very briefly about why I bought an Apple Watch. Number two, well, this is YouTube for goodness sake, so we'll be doing an unboxing. And number three, we'll be having a look at the Apple Watch briefly, linking it up with an iPhone and talking a bit about what's good and what's not so good about the device. I'm filming this in January 2016, and chances are we're just weeks away from the announcement of an Apple Watch 2. So why on earth would I buy an Apple Watch 1? Well, when they were very first announced, I looked at the specifications and I looked at how it was going to work in operation, and I did think to myself, it's probably not for me. It's a first generation product. I don't always jump in at first generation, even though you may call me an Apple fanboy. I don't agree with everything that they do. And I didn't buy a first generation iPhone, for example. And the Apple Watch to me looked the same. The main things that I didn't like about it were the fact that the display turned off, that it didn't run native apps, and I was a little unsure about the battery life. Now, two of those three things have been sorted out by Apple in Apple Watch OS 2. Now, the display does still turn off in order to conserve battery life, but we'll talk more about battery life later on. Apple Watch OS 2 introduced native apps. What that means is that instead of the app having to be pulled from your iPhone, it can run natively on the device. Now, these are still very cut down applications. Let's not kid ourselves here. Why would you want a fully featured application on your wrist anyway? But the fact that they are native means that they run much quicker. So that was that box ticked. Now, the display still turns itself on and off in order to conserve the battery life. But the battery life, it turns out, is actually quite good. As we'll see when I talk about my use of the Apple Watch later on, battery life isn't something that I'm overly concerned about. So the first thing we need to do is to unbox the Apple Watch. And this is the Apple Watch Sport 42mm. Let's take a look at that. So here we have the Apple Watch. And this box is surprisingly heavy actually. It weighs a ton. So either this has an Apple Watch inside it or somebody has substituted a house brick. Let's hope it's the former. Now it's just got a typical Apple packaging. It's got, it looks good even before you've got into it. And we need to take off first of all the cellophane from the outside of the box. So let's remove that. And there's our box now, and we'll take the lid off and have a look inside. It's a nice snug fit, and there it is. There's our Apple Watch. Put that on one side, and that lifts out with attention to detail, as you would expect from Apple products. Let's just stick that on one side for a moment. We'll have a look inside this box here. This has got the straps inside here, I think. So let's just pull it out and have a look. And this is a brief instruction manual. Now that is the small strap. If you buy the 38mm, this strap is attached to the watch. If I've got the 42, so the larger strap is attached to it. But if you buy the big watch and you've got a small wrist, then at least you've got that to use. Stick that on one side, don't really need that. And let's have a look here. Now this is the fantastic UK Apple plug adapter, which to anybody overseas, you won't get excited about this with your dodgy electric shock 2-pin plugs that you've got. Let's just open this up. Always such good packaging on Apple products. Let's take that off, and you can see here now, this is brilliant. This, flick it out, and that is how the 3-pin plug should always be. That's just fantastic. Look at that. I was hoping I'd get one of those with the Apple TV 4 and didn't, but I'm pleased to see that it comes with the Apple Watch. Really smart that is. What a clever design. Now inside here we have the charging mechanism, again packaged up really rather nicely, and that's a USB adapter on one end, and we have the magnetic holder that the watch is going to snap onto. Right, now onto the main event, and this also has some wrapping around it, so we'll remove that. This is the box for the Apple Watch. It's a plastic box, but still pretty sturdy. Let's take this out. And let's open it up now and have a look. A lot of times when you buy a watch, it actually comes sort of folded up, doesn't it? But this is flat. So there we are. It's a nice padded box, and there is the Apple Watch Sport 42mm, and that also has some protective wrapping around it. But let's just have a look. And I really like it. The space grey model this is with the black strap, but it's still aluminium. The mechanism. So there it is in all its shiny new glory. It's really nice looking and say packaged up so well. So let's take all that off as well. There's the sensors on the back that pick up your heart rate and also give you the haptic feedback. And there it is, the Apple Watch Sport unboxed. Nice. Okay, so that was unboxing the Apple Watch Sport 42mm. There are two sizes of Apple Watch, the 42mm and the 38mm. You get a strap that will really work with both in the box. You get the small strap and the large strap as we saw. If you buy the 38mm, the smaller strap is actually attached to the watch. If you buy the 42mm, the large strap is attached. The one that isn't attached is in the box there as you saw. Now, there are three different editions of the Apple Watch, and there's the Apple Watch Edition, which is the insanely priced version of the Apple Watch, which you will only buy if you are insane, or a Premiership footballer. Some would say that's the same. The other two versions are the Apple Watch and the Apple Watch Sport. I went for the Apple Watch Sport, and that was kind of deliberate. Well, it was deliberate, I bought it. But the reason I went for the cheaper end, really the cheapest watch that I could buy, was because this device is going to improve quite a lot as time goes on. But we'll talk more about that in the summary. The Apple Watch Sport comes with this kind of rubbery, it's not a rubbery, they've got some crazy name for it, can't remember what it is, but it's sort of kind of a soft textured strap that will be good for working out. I think that's why it's called Sport. Whereas if you want a leather or metal strap, then the Apple Watch is the one to go for, but it is a lot more expensive. And again, we'll talk about more of that in the summary. So the next thing you have to do when you've unboxed your Apple Watch is to connect it to your iPhone. And yes, it does need your iPhone, but this, as we'll see later on, does make a lot of sense. So let's have a look at that really easy process. Pairing it couldn't be simpler. Let's take a look at that now. Right, the next thing to do is to pair our Apple Watch with an iOS device. And the first thing it's done when I switched it on is to ask me what language. And we've got English UK and English, so I'm going to have English UK. It says low battery to continue, connect Apple Watch to its charger. That's a good start. Right, so let's find the charger. It's a good point actually, a good chance to have a look at our charger. Here he is. Just move the watch out of the way just for a moment. And I'm going to peel the plastic off. Yay, we love doing the peeling the plastic thing off. Oh, hello. Oh, here we go. Right, marvellous. That's that done. And if I look at this charging device, there is one side is completely flat and the other side has a very slight sort of dip in it. And that's the one where the watch goes on. So I'm now going to get my Johnny Ive designed flip out, flop out UK plug, and this is where I'm now going to battle to find somewhere to plug it in. Like I said, 21st century problems. And now this should just slap on the back of that, which it has done, but it doesn't help when the other end isn't anywhere near a plug socket. So I'll be back momentarily. Hold that thought. Okay, we're back. So we're now setting language to English UK on the Apple Watch. I'm going to tap. Now that the Apple Watch had its language set, we're now going to pair it with an iOS device. Now this is quite clever. You'll see it had a little message on there saying we want to pair it, and it's got this weird 3D pattern appeared. And if I bring up my iOS device and I tap on the Watch app, it says there, good morning. It's very polite. if you have an Apple Watch, you can pair it with your iPhone here. So I'm going to do start pairing, and then it simply brings up a little camera app, and if I hold that over the Apple Watch, let's try and find it. There we are. You couldn't see that on the screen because I've got a massive phone, but all I did was to hold the 3D pattern into the camera view, and that's all I had to do. It says your Apple Watch is paired, and they've both got the same picture showing on the screen now. And if I move my phone back up into the display here, you can see it says set up Apple Watch. So if I tap that, it asks me the first question, which is on which wrist do you wear your Apple Watch? It's going to be my left wrist because I am not cack-handed, and apologies to any lefties out there. So the next thing I had to do was to verify my Apple ID, which I've now done, and it's asking me for shared settings. So settings for location services, Siri, Wi-Fi, calls, diagnostics, etc. shared between iPhone and Apple Watch. I'm just going to OK through that. And we can now do various things on here, such as creating passcodes, which is I'm going to do next. Now it's asking me about Apple Pay, which of course is compatible with the iOS device that I have. So it's just saying that it's going to work. I can use my Apple. The next thing it's doing is the Apple Watch knows, or my iPhone really knows what apps I've got installed, clearly, and it can make sure that it downloads those that have Apple Watch available extensions and install those automatically on the phone. So for example, Twitter, Instagram have Apple Watch ready items, which is super smashing, lovely, great. And once it's downloaded those, it will install those on the watch, and I can leave that going. It needs charging up anyway. So that's a very, very quick look at setting up the Apple Watch with an iOS device. Okay, so we've unboxed the Apple Watch and we've paired it with an iOS device, an iPhone. Fantastic. So we've got the device working, and here it is on my wrist. As I said, this is the 42mm model. Now, you do get two colours. You get the normal silver aluminium, and you get the space grey, still aluminium. Now, I've gone here for the space grey model and the black strap. I quite like the dark look to it. I think it looks really nice. If you want to try different coloured straps, or the metal straps or the leather straps, it might be better to go for the silver one in actual fact, because that will work with any coloured strap. The space grey, I think, only really works well with the darker strap, with the black strap. I've no intention of changing the strap particularly. I've got no interest in putting more. These straps are expensive. I've got no interest in putting other straps on there. If you have, silver might be the better one to go for. Okay, let's just have a look now at the Apple Watch itself and some of the things that you can do on it. So let's now have a look at the Apple Watch. This is it here. This is my particular Apple Watch, which is the Apple Watch Sport. This is the space grey model. So you can see that it's got the kind of grey look with the black strap, which I really like. But if you prefer another strap, then you probably want to not get the space grey one. Now you'll see here that it's asked for a passcode. Let's just tap that again. And it's got a little lock symbol at the top there. Now this is because I haven't got it on my wrist. If you haven't got it on your wrist, then it'll ask you for the passcode. So I'm now going to type in my passcode, which I'm going to do off camera. And there we go. It's now come back to life. Now once you put this on your wrist, it won't ask you for the passcode again until you take it off, which is a neat touch. I really like that. Now this, swipe up. Now it's connected at the moment to my iPhone. That's what it says at the top there, connected, and it is at the moment in silent mode. So I'll turn that off, or do not disturb rather, mode. And you've got other options here, such as being able to control Apple TV and send a little message to your iPhone if you lose it. Now you can see here that this is the screen, and you can choose different watch faces on here. If I press and do a force touch on there, then I get various options. There's a more traditional watch face, so if we have a look at that, and you can see it's got sort of phases of the moon on there and the temperature and all that kind of thing. And you can have photographs, and you can sort of time-lapse one is actually quite nice. there's a time lapse, and this particular one is of London, which, whether it's put London because that's my nearest big city, I don't know. Perhaps it does that automatically, phases of the moon, all sorts of other different bits and pieces that you can put on there. But you pick out favourite pictures from your photo album, for example. I've got it on the jellyfish at the moment, and that shows off the OLED display rather nicely, I think. Now on the side you've got a couple of buttons. You've got this is called the digital crown, and if I push that, then it takes me to a screen where I've got all my watch apps installed. So for example, there's a BBC News down there, so if I tap BBC News, it'll take me into the BBC News app. Now what's this actually doing? Well, it's talking to my iPhone in order to pull the headlines back. So there's the top stories and also my news. So if I tap on one of the news stories, then it pulls in just the pricing. You can see at the bottom, read more on iPhone. You're not going to want to read a lot on a watch. It's not comfortable to have your hand in a position sticking out in front of your face. More often than not, you actually look like a complete idiot doing that anyway. So this is just giving you a real brief overview, small picture, brief overview. This one there, A35 closed due to flooding because it's raining. What a surprise. And bits about the tennis and various other bits there. So that's the BBC News. You can actually, if you don't want to scroll using the screen, you can use the digital crown to move around. If I push it again, it'll take me back to the main screen. Now if I go back to the watch face, you can swipe up or down. So if I swipe down, it will give me notifications such as, for example, text messages, messages from social media, that kind of thing. And if I swipe up, it gives me the glances here, and this is sending me goals. As you can see, I haven't moved today yet. I'm filming this in the morning. So if I tap on that, it'll tell me my activity, which at the moment is, well, I've only just picked the watch up off the desk. So I've done 0 calories, I've done 0 minutes of exercise and 0 hours of standing. That's not very good. Perhaps I'm dead. So let's look at that. It'll give me later information on how well I'm doing with standing and what have you. Now here we have controls for whatever I was last using on my iPhone. This happened to be the BBC iPlayer. I was streaming across to my Apple TV last night, so it knows that, it remembers that I could have used my Apple Watch as a remote control for that. There it's got heart rate. Now that's not going to work because it's not on my wrist, although I've got my finger underneath. Yeah, let's not even look at that because it's not on my wrist. So there's the amount of battery, there's calendar, there's some other bits and pieces. There's the time, there's the BBC News, there's some recent tweets, and there's some steps. Oh, today I've done 18 steps. Again, that's pulling that in from my iPhone. That's where that comes from. These are the glances. Now I've put it on the watch on my wrist. Again, it's asking me for my passcode, so I'm going to tap that in off camera. And as I said before, that won't now ask me for my passcode again until I take the watch off my wrist. So now what I'm going to do is go back up to here, and I'm going to look at the heart rate monitor. That's measuring my heart rate, and it's 74. I'm standing up, so maybe that's got something to do. Oh, 88. Okay, I wonder what I'm thinking about. And at least that, well, I'm still alive, so that's the most important thing now, I suppose. Oh, 89, it's going up. My goodness. So there we are, 87. Anyway, I'm not going to keep looking at that. And you can actually use the watch to, let's see, it's turned off there now. And you can also use the watch to dictate text messages. I was going to do a demo here. I was going to send a text message from my wife's iPhone 5S to here while I was doing this demo, and then do a reply back. But she's out and she's taken the phone with her, so I can't do that. And I can't send a text message to myself. So, but what happens is you see the text message come up on screen. You see the text of the text message, and then you get an icon with, you can either send a sort of emoticon back,
or you can send some standard messages which you can set on your iPhone, such as thanks or yeah or okay or be there in a minute or whatever it may be, which you can then send from your Apple Watch, and then you can change those on your iPhone to whatever you want them to be. But you can dictate a reply, and then that reply can be sent as an audio file or as text, and it translates it into text, and it actually makes a pretty good job, I've found. Unless you've got some really weird words in there, that it actually does some really good translations. So there we go. That's a very, very quick look at the Apple Watch. As you can see, it's very responsive. As I'm sort of whizzing about on here, it's very good. I really like it. It's very handy, particularly handy if you're out and about and you want to look at a message that maybe just came in and you know it is worth responding by pulling your phone out your pocket. A lot of people have said, well, what's the point, because you just pull your phone out your pocket. If you've got a big phone like the 5S, sorry, like the 6S Plus, you don't really want to keep pulling that out of your pocket when you're out and about. It's very handy just to have a look at your Apple Watch and see what messages have come in and see whether you need to respond to those straight away or not. So that is the Apple Watch. This is the Space Grey.
Okay, so in summary then, what do I think of the Apple Watch? Well, and should you buy one? Well, first of all, it depends on what kind of phone you've got, because the phone is tied very closely to the use of the device itself. It won't be happy if when your iPhone drifts out of range. So if you've got an Android phone at the moment, you want to probably look at Android Wear devices, and there's some really nice ones of those about. If you've got an iOS device, then the Apple Watch is really the obvious thing to do. There is another type of watch, it's called the Pebble, and that can work with both iOS and Android as well, and has a longer battery life but a slightly less intensive display. And in fact, the display is one of the really good things about the Apple Watch. It uses an OLED display. The black is truly black. It's not a backlit display, which means the black looks really dark and it brings the colours out on the rest of the screen. It looks really good. That helps to conserve battery life actually, because only the pixels that are in use are going to use battery power. And that brings us on to the elephant in the room, that battery power. Now, when the Apple Watch first came out, there was a lot of talk about, will it last all day? And Apple's solution to this is to turn the display off. So there's the watch on my screen, and on my wrist rather, and the screen is black. There's nothing on there. If I move my wrist up like that, you can see, you might just be able to make out that the display has, no, it's gone off again, because it's worked out really quite cleverly when I'm not using my watch. So as I'm looking at it like that, I can see the time. When I turn it towards the camera, it's already gone off. So it's really good at working out when I'm looking at the display. So it turning on and off actually isn't that much of a problem. I'd still prefer it if it was on all the time, but if it did that, I assume, in fact it's pretty likely, that the battery wouldn't last all day. With the screen turning off, it actually lasts, for me, easily 2 days, and it would probably just about get to 3. After a day's use, I'm finding that the Apple Watch has something like 60 to 70% of battery. After 2 days, it might be down to about 30%. So I could, at a push, get 3 days out of it. What I'm tending to do now is to put it on charge every other day. I really don't need to charge it up every night. And of course, charging it is really easy with that snap-on charging gizmo that they've come up with. It's brilliant. You take it off your wrist, which you're going to do anyway, and then you just drop it on there. It snaps on really easily. There's no faffing about with it to try and get it to connect, and then off you go, and you come back the next morning, you take it off, put it on your wrist, and you're good to go. And the thing about the Apple Watch is that you can also use it in nightstand mode. So if you have it on your bedside table, for example, you can have it with a display on there to look at during the night, should you wish to know what the time is when you wake up early in the early hours. So the question now is, should you buy one? As I said earlier on, I'm recording this in January 2016, and there's every chance that a new Apple Watch will be on the way. Now, I got this just ahead of Christmas 2015. It was £50 off, which is quite a hefty chunk off the amount. It brought it below, well below, in fact, the £300 level that I thought to myself was would stop me from buying one. I thought once it was over £300 to buy, even the basic one, unless you went for the 38mm that was under 300. I didn't want that, I wanted 42. If you wanted 42, it was always going to be over that 300. So once it came below that, I thought, you know what, this is worth having a go at. So what are the good and the bad things, I think, about this first generation Apple Watch? Well, the bad things are that battery life. It's actually not as much of a problem as I thought it was going to be, but still it would be quite nice to have a watch that I didn't have to think about charging up every other day. Once a week, I think, would actually be quite good. But then again, if you get into the habit of sticking it on charge every night when you go to bed, then it's not really going to bother you. But I would still like better battery life so that the display could be on all the time. That would be quite good. If you want to just have a little subtle look at your watch when you're in a meeting and you really don't want to be there anymore, you just can't do it with the Apple Watch without also gently tapping the watch with your finger, which will bring the display on. If you can do that surreptitiously under the desk, then you might be all right. Okay, so what are the good things about the Apple Watch? Well, it does work really seamlessly with your iOS device. It feels snappy, it feels fast, the display is fantastic. You can customize it in all sorts of different ways as well. As we saw when we were looking at the watch earlier on, you can really bring up some nice photos, some nice different sort of watch faces as well. I'm not sure about the Mickey Mouse one, but it's quite fun to look at occasionally. It is good as a smartwatch. It does what it says on the tin. There's also no doubt that it's been built with really quality products. And I think that's one of the good things when you compare an Apple Watch with something like Android Wear. With Android Wear, you've got to be very careful. There are some good devices out there, good smartwatches, but there's also some absolute toot. So you want to make sure that you're getting something good quality. If you're on the Android side of the fence, that means doing a lot of research. One of the good things, I suppose, about using iOS is that you tend to have a limited number of products to go for. The Apple Watch is the Apple Watch. And the fact is, if you buy that, it's really manufactured well, as you'd expect from Apple, a real quality product, and it feels premium. Even this entry-level Apple Watch Sport feels like it's a real high-quality product on your wrist, which is nice. If you buy the Apple Watch edition, go and see a doctor. So I still haven't answered the question, do I recommend that you go out and buy one of these things? I'd say, as we're into 2016, it's probably worth waiting until we find out if Apple are going to produce a version 2 product. This came out in April, it's version 1, April 2015, so April 2016, will there be an Apple Watch 2? I don't know, because I think it makes sense for them to only release an update when they can sort out that elephant in the room we talked about, which was the battery life. If they can't sort that out, and I don't know whether they will be able to sort that out so soon after the initial product came out, then is it worth it? Is it worth it if it's another millimetre thinner? I don't know. Is it going to be worth it? I know some Android Wear watches have got cameras built into them, for example. I'm not entirely convinced that's a brilliant idea, but you know, they could add something like that, I suppose. There are other things that they could do to this product. And so you have to probably have a look and see whether those things are important to you. If not, then you're probably about to pick up an Apple Watch 1 at a really good price. And if those prices start dropping back in the second-hand market or refurbished market, then they really could be a good buy. Okay, that's quite enough waffle for me. I do hope you've enjoyed this video. I've been rambling again. I'm trying to be a bit more professional with these videos, but it's difficult when I'm just looking at a camera and there's nobody talking back at me, calling me an idiot or throwing tomatoes. So I do hope you've enjoyed it anyway. I hope it's kind of made some sense. I'll catch you in the next one. There's all sorts of ways that you can get in touch with me: Twitter, Instagram, via my website. All the details are up on the screen at the moment. And thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time.